Spain won the Euros in 2008, in 2010 and in 2012. A near impossible achievement in the modern era of football. But how did they do it? Before the Spanish national team went on to dominate world football, they were perennial underdogs. They relied on a passive form of wing play to actually get the ball into the box, but this wasn't really working for them at the time. There was a lack of physicality in their squad, so Spain decided to reinvent their style of play for the modern era. So how did they do it? In this video, we'll look at the tactical revolution of the Spain national team, and then we'll look at the 3 tactics and how they play out in Football Manager 2024. Full disclosure, this is not a meta tactic video. This is not an OP tactic video. This is a recreation of the Spain's national team that went on to win 3 major trophies in 4 years. In 08, Luis Aragonés was the manager in charge of the Spain's national team. Their passive possession style of play did not go away, but instead Aragonés used this as a defense mechanism. Spain would pass the ball tirelessly and build out from the back before playing it into creative midfielders. Aragonés got rid of conventional wingers that would just cross the ball. Instead, he opted for wide playmakers like David Silva or Andrés Iniesta, who had better ball control and better vision. The wide playmakers would cut aside and stay closer to the central areas, creating a numerical superiority in midfield. This created problems for Spain: defensive recovery and width. To make up for their weaknesses in defensive recovery, Aragonés played Marcos Senna in defensive midfield. Marcos Senna is a powerful ball winner that is capable of playing the defensive midfield entirely on his own, and that is exactly what he did. This gave freedom to the other 3 midfielders ahead of Senna to actually go ahead and be more creative in possession. David Villa also dropped deeper from attacking positions to actually offer some support in midfield, where Marcos Senna held his position in defensive midfield. Behind Marcos Senna was Carles Puyol and a man called Marquena. Both players were good on the ball, and this was vital for Spain's patient build-up from the back. Sergio Ramos and Capdevila were the fullbacks in this team. They had energy to get forward and offer width for the team, and the creative playmakers, like I mentioned before, they would cut inside and sit in midfield. Base formation started off as a 4-4-2 system, but it later morphed into a 4-1-4-1 with Marcos Senna as the defensive midfield and Fernando Torres as the main striker. Beyond playing out from the back, Spain was actually very patient in possession, and they would look to move the opposition around with endless spells of possession and then look to play that killer pass to actually unlock the defense. Now, this is what I came up with in Football Manager 2024. So this is the shape of the 08 tactic and what it would normally look like if you're looking at it from Football Manager 2024. I have the current group of players here for the Spanish national team, and somehow Rodri, yes, he's playing at centre back for us in the game that I actually went on to play. I'm also using standard central defenders for this because I noticed that they do well in possession. They kind of retain possession a lot better than the ball playing defenders, and I think as of 2008, I'm not sure how many ball playing defenders were at the time. I'm sure Spain was starting something special with ball playing defenders, so that's something interesting to look at. But as a goalkeeper, I opted for the super keeper on support over the defending goalkeeper or the defending super keeper, and then as wing backs, I opted for wing backs on support DT because they were going to get ahead. The Sergio Ramos and Capdevila pairing, they were going to get ahead into the space vacated by these wide playmakers that are up here. And on the left hand side, I have a wide playmaker on attack DT, which kind of like operates the David Silva role. This is going to be the Iniesta role. Wide playmaker on support DT playing on the right hand side, and then I have a ball winning midfielder on defend representing Marcos Senna, and then the Xavi role, which is the advanced playmaker on support DT, is going to be playing on the right hand side. David Villa, like I mentioned, dropped deep from the deep lying forward role, so he is going to operate in the kind of number 10 slot in here, and he's also going to get as far deep as the central midfield, while Marcos Senna actually drops into the DM position, creating that 4-1-4-1 strata, and of course Fernando Torres playing as the center forward on attack. Team instructions wise, I didn't really touch anything that much. I'm using a mid block with a standard defensive line, and of course a more often trigger press, not going all the way up, and the team is also going to be dropping off more when we go on to lose possession, so we don't actually get ourselves caught out on the counter attack. In transition, the only thing I included was to hold shape and then slow the pace down, because it's important that the team actually controls possession, so the goalkeeper is going to go ahead and slow the pace down while taking short kicks. When they're out of possession, a narrow width kind of helped us stay compact in central midfield, but also playing with a lower tempo and opting for a shorter passing, and of course playing out of defense is very important, but I went on to include the waste time to actually emphasize our team holding on to possession for long hours, for long spells, to actually go ahead and find that killer pass where we're walking the ball into the box and also dribbling less. Nobody is running too much, so even the wing backs are kind of controlled. They're not running out of defense unnecessarily.
Oh, it drops for Fabregas, who looks for Iniesta, who's offside! Spain score!
Now, during the FIFA World Cup in South Africa, Spain evolved again, this time to adjust to the retirement of Marcos Senna. Marquena was also not in the side, so Barcelona's Gerard Piqué had to step in and fill the role in central defense. Del Bosque had taken charge of the national team at this point, following Luis Aragonés' departure, and he continued where his predecessor actually left off. Without Marcos Senna, Del Bosque opted for a double pivot in central midfield, playing Xabi Alonso and Sergio Busquets as defensive midfielders. Both players were actually good on the ball, with Alonso having a lot more creative freedom to get forward and support creative attacks. This allowed Xavi to operate in an advanced role as a number 10. The fullbacks in this system had a license to get forward, but Del Bosque opted for conventional wingers like Pedro to actually get into the team and also offer some width when it was needed in certain games. He also opted for a lot more possession when he was using this tactic, preferring to keep possession of the ball rather than risk the opponent winning possession from a loose ball. Spain also opted for a tactical pressing style of play, which involved cutting passing lanes and also pressing zones rather than going for man-to-man pressing. For some, this was boring to watch, but for Spain, this was a bedrock for their dominant success in world football. This is how the tactic turned out to look in Football Manager 2024. For the 2010 tactic, I did opt for two ball-playing defenders on defend duty, and instead of wingbacks on the spot, I opted for wingbacks playing on automatic duty. I did keep the goalkeeper the same, but now I have two sitters, one defensive midfielder on support duty acting as the Xabi Alonso role, and then there's some instructions for that player. He's going to take more risks and then get further forward, close down more and then tackle harder, while the deep lying playmaker on defend, being the Sergio Busquets role, is going to just shoot less, dribble less, the normal instructions for a deep lying playmaker that is playing on defend. In the number 10 slot, we have the advanced playmaker on support duty, and then on either side we have one winger on support, and then the other winger is the inverted winger on support duty playing on the left hand side, and then you have a complete forward on attack duty as well. Team instructions wise, lower tempo was the selection here, and then shorter passing, and of course playing the ball out of defense again to try and emphasize that slow build up. We're also going to be walking the ball into the box and of course dribble less, but then I didn't go on to include any other instruction except in transition. Here the team is now allowed to counter press because the Barcelona team has started getting used to their counter pressing, even though it wasn't that relentless, and we're going to look at that in the out of possession phase. They're also going to be holding shape, which is kind of retained from the 2008 tactic. The goalkeeper this time isn't really slowing the pace down, he's only going to take short kicks and try to build up from the back. When they're out of possession, I did opt for a high press in this one, but that might have been a mistake. And then we're looking at the much more often trigger press selected for this tactic. The team is also going to try to drop off when they go on to lose possession. If they can't win the ball back after that high press or after that counter press, they will go back and sit in their shape and try to protect themselves. A lot of testing has to go into this 2010 tactic because there's a lot of work to be done as to how to make the tactic perfect, but we're not aiming to create an OP tactic. We're selecting the player roles that fit the style of play that Spain used for the 2010 World Cup. We're almost there, 2012. The Euros in 2012 saw the full madness of Spain's tactical evolution. Fernando Torres was out of form at this point at Chelsea.
Fantastic run, he's onside by Miles, and you think that's great feet round the keeper.
So Spain opted to play without a recognized centre forward. In the final against Italy, where they completely destroyed the Italians in the most one-sided European final you ever see in the modern era, Spain played a strikerless 4-6-0 system. Valencia's Jordi Alba actually came into the team and he played a slightly more adventurous fullback role, but in this tactic the right back was slightly more reserved. Sergio Ramos had evolved to become one of the most dominant centre-backs in world football, so he helped the defence, and the trio in midfield from Barcelona, that's Xavi, Sergio Busquets and Andres Iniesta, they completely ran the show. As Barcelona had fully mastered their trigger press at this point, Spain benefited from this and were able to hunt for possession in the opposition's territory. It was a complete masterclass. Cesc Fabregas actually led the attack from the number 10 position, with David Silva playing beside him as the left winger, more like a left wing playmaker somehow. They kept their passing short for ball retention purposes, but this time Spain's possession had a lot more intent to it. They were not so passive. This is what the tactic actually looked like in Football Manager 2024. Now the 2012 tactic was a lot more difficult to actually put together because at first I started with advanced playmaker on attack duty playing in this role. I started with an advanced playmaker on attack, but that didn't really help us much. We weren't really penetrating the opposition's defense. Ideally this is the way it would go. An advanced playmaker on attack duty on either side, and then maybe one on support on the left hand side, and you have wing backs that are going to be getting ahead, and your midfield trinity is going to be in here. But I noticed that we weren't getting that many goals, and if I played it a lot longer I probably would have figured it out. But what I did was to move the striker to play as a false 9 on support duty, and then I asked Ansu Fati to play in that role. In defense, I did use two ball-playing defenders. I kept those players, and then this time my wingbacks are going to be playing on attack. That's because I noticed that they kind of help the players, get into that space that is in the width, and then allow the inside or the advanced playmakers that are playing on the wide side to actually cut inside and be in the central areas. In defense, the deep lying playmaker is on defend duty, and then you're looking at a roaming playmaker this time, which is sort of the Xavi role. Is going to be acting like the conductor of everything. That's why I kind of like this roaming playmaker role. Everything kind of flows through him. And then you have the Iniesta role in the Mezzala on attack duty, playing on the left hand side. Now, out of possession for this tactic, I did bring in the high press and the high defensive line this time, and the team is also going to be pressing much more often, and they're getting stuck in, and instead of dropping off, they're actually going to step up a lot more this time and compress the field and try to win it back, because that trigger press now has been fully evolved into the Spain's national team. And when they're in transition, they're still going to counter press and they're going to hold their shape. This time the goalkeeper doesn't have a distribution type. He's only going to distribute it to the center backs. Now when the team is in possession, a slightly lower and slightly shorter passing, because I want to include that possession intent. So before, Spain was a bit passive with their possession, but now they're going to be a lot more intentional with their passing to try to score goals. That's why you can see I moved from a balanced mentality to a positive mentality. They're also going to be playing with a fairly narrow width, and they're playing out of defense and looking for the overlap only on the left hand side. That's because Jordi Alba is going to be playing on this role. Mind you, I noticed that the only reason why I moved Pedro Porro from playing on support to playing on attack was because I wanted an additional penetration from this left hand side. Normally it's just supposed to be on support. They're also going to be playing low crosses, playing those cutbacks, and then they're walking the ball into the box as well. One instruction that remains the same in all three tactics is the dribble less instruction. So those are the three tactics that Spain actually use to dominate world football. Now on this channel, we go on to share Football Manager tactics like this and Football Manager recreation tactics from real world football tactics, and also testing out manager and tactics that are quite interesting, and Football Manager aggressive tactics as well. So if you're interested in all this kind of stuff, remember you can subscribe to the channel and then get notified when more videos like this do actually come out. And if you're interested in checking out opposition instructions and how to actually apply them in Football Manager, watch this next video on opposition instructions. I'll see you in the next video.